Welcome back to another episode of our podcast. My name is Samra, and I'm a confidence coach, and I help introverted leaders speak with authority, capture attention, and inspire action through their delivery. And today, I'm joined by Alex Bradley, who's a holistic leadership consultant and interestingly described himself as a guy that has never taken an ounce of stress in his entire life. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about killing the ego. I'm super excited to hear Alex's side of the story and how he killed his ego. And hopefully, at the end of this podcast, you will have a newfound sense of awareness about how your ego might be keeping you small and how you can push past your limitations and take powerful action towards your goals, whether it's in your business or your personal life. So before we get into it, please make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and on Instagram. I'll be linking our handles below. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Hi, Alex. Welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I want to hear all about your stories today. And I cannot wait for you to tell us about how you killed your ego. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure thing, Samra. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I really enjoy telling my story. And of course, I always say, look, if it happened to me, it can happen to you. If I'm able to do something, I'm a firm believer that pretty much everyone can do it because I'm really not that special. I've just tapped in to what I say. There's greatness in all of us. But you know what? My story starts, many, many moons ago. I'm not the spring chicken that I used to be. And I always tell, I always tell my friends, don't get old because, you start to feel the pains of age. But really, what I want to say is, although I'm 51 years old today, or this year, I turned 52. Actually, I'm coming up to my 52nd birthday. I don't feel 52, right? I have this really interesting energy about me that just flows, and I really I really embrace life, and I love waking up every morning. Like every morning, it's like I'm refreshed and regenerated. And I think that goes to this idea of, how do we eradicate stress in our lives? How do we separate what happens to us with who we are? And that's really what I've done. I've just been able to say, look, who am I in this universe, right? Who, what makes me tick? What brings me joy? And then what happens to me are separated. There's a gulf. So then that stress of whatever happens, right? The car breaks down, the dog runs away, the kids, I have kids, I have, my 4 kids, the kids make some poor choices, which kids do, right? That they're kids. And those are disappointing. We have disappointment in life, but I am not disappointed. Like there's disappointing circumstances. There's sad circumstances. Let's take like my dog, for instance, a brief story on the dog, right? This dog came to us. He's actually a bit of a designer dog. He's a puggle, a mix between a beagle and a pug. I don't know what kind of, alchemy was done to create this creature. But he really was a good dog. He was a bit selfish. I kept wondering, where's this dog to get my paper and take it? No, we took care of him and we were his people. But you did it because he had the cutest face and he was a dog. Well, when he passed away, I cried like a baby. I cried and my kids are like, Dad's going to ugly cry again. So, I was made fun of for a while. So it doesn't mean that you don't cry. It doesn't mean that you don't feel sad. It just says that, look, I know who I'm in the universe, and it's separate than what happens to me in the universe. And that I can then never, like literally for like 30 years, I've rarely ever even felt the cortisol dump that happens to your body biophysically when you become stressed. We have hormones that are built in that are millions of years or thousands of years old, whatever number you want to pick, very old. And that's fight or flight, right? And it's, we need to eat, kill our food, run, live in a cave. Those are things that are pretty much pre-programmed. And that cortisol is what keeps us alive to a point. But it's debilitating to a point in a society where, you can get your food, we have housing, we have the basics taken care of. How do we get to that next level of joy, that next level of peace, deep, lasting joy? And that's where I strive to teach others, look, you've got to go to the mountain. You've got to go and, like the ancients say, kill your ego, right? And you've got to get that part of you not, you're not here to destroy yourself. And I say, look, take that ego and you're just going to say, look, there is a higher power. I like to call it the creator. And some people have religion, and that's fine. And faith.
Yeah.
I'm never here to say, look, your religion's false, whatever. No, you want to worship, someone wants to worship a tree and they're the tree people. Wonderful. More power to you. I have run into so many great religions around the world, and I've been able to travel the world. I always say, look, when you can travel the world, you come back, you appreciate your culture better, you appreciate your home better. But then you also have appreciation for other people's culture. And, I have run into just wonderful people from wonderful religions. And I'm a firm believer that each of us, regardless of your faith, can go to that mountain and say, God, Allah, whatever it is, creator, who am I? What am I? What do you want from me? And when I did that, when I was 19 years old, lo and behold, I emerged from that process with this innate ability to find joy in all that I do. And for some reason, the energy of the world just kept coming to me, the energy of the universe, and I think there's some byproducts of this. I don't sleep much. I have full of energy. I sleep about 2 to 4 hours a night. Sometimes I get 5 hours, on the fluke. I can't even remember last time I got 8 hours of sleep. I literally cannot even recall. But I wake up refreshed every day. I wake up and I have full of energy, and then I just seek for greatness. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. I still make poor choices, but I learn to forgive quickly. I forgive others quickly. A couple of mantras I live by is, have grace for myself and have grace for others. That maybe someone treats me poorly, right? And I say to myself, well, this is another technique that I've learned over the years. And a lot of this is self-taught. Sure, I do read scriptures. I do believe in a higher power. I call him my creator. That has definitely guided me and been my leader. But I learned the technique of self-speak that also helps me course correct quickly. So whether it's interacting with my wife, and sometimes your spouse is, it's hard for humans to live with other humans. That's just we are it's tough. It's tough. And communication, I find with me, and of course I think men and women, we communicate a little differently. And we have different sensibilities, and I do fall into the standard trap of, I'm a little insensitive, I think, at times, and I don't communicate well, and I have to course correct quickly at times. And I've learned a technique of just self-speaking. So I say to myself, self. I either say self or I'll say Alex. I sometimes use my name, and sometimes I use the word self, and I literally just tell myself what to feel and what to do. Self, forgive your wife right now. Self, don't get upset with your wife right now. Self, don't get upset with your teenager that is acting crazy because they're 15 and their hormones are going crazy and they don't know any better. And in that moment, and sometimes this takes weeks, months, years to learn, but as I self-speak, in that very moment, I can instantly course correct. So then my mind, it's like these two halves. So as I tell myself, don't get upset with your 15-year-old teenager. She's only a teenager. She doesn't know better. You love her. She's just being a teenager. Instantly, the other side, right? My mind, myself goes, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. She's a teenager. Okay, I won't be mad. And then I don't ever get mad. And then, so that I'm not getting mad. I'm not taking offense. I'm forgiving quickly. And in my charity work, I've done some charity work, and I work for a nonprofit, and I do volunteer time. I volunteer my time on a weekly basis, working with others, both the youth and adults. I have found that for the most part, everyone's suffering. Everyone has to suffer, right? Everyone, and that we've got to have that grace for everyone. We don't know everyone's suffering. We don't know everyone's journey in life. Now, some people show their suffering a little more out external. They wear it on their sleeves, right? And you see it and you feel it. But no, they're suffering everywhere. So you just have a little grace. I always say, look, love people where they're at. We don't have to make them into something they're not. And it doesn't mean that you're going to just let them step all over you if they're being if they're really being
Yeah.
belligerent,
Yeah.
or they're being narcissistic and they're really taking advantage of you. No, I mean, you still have to stand up and say, look, that's not right. Please don't treat me that way. But at the same time, we don't have to have those inner feelings of just angst and, oh, that person's a jerk and da da da. No, we're all suffering. We're all struggling. We're just going to do our best. And we're going to use love instead of angst, right? So therefore, again, no cortisol dump happens, no stress happens, and I'm able to separate those in my life. So that's my story, Samra. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think I was drawn into your story to the point where I was just walking with you on the journey you were taking us on. And hopefully everyone will feel the same because it's quite empowering and you have dropped a lot of gold in the process. And I was trying to, register it and take some lessons from it at the same time. And the key takeaways that I have so far from what I've heard is separating yourself from the experience is crucial to living a stress-free life. And I absolutely love how you've honed in on this automated self-talk that you have now become good at, but it took obviously practice and time. And obviously, I think we all, once we do things through repetition over a period of time, that gets picked up by the unconscious mind, and then it becomes an automated response. So I absolutely love that, and I also loved how you are being, true to the fact that hey, what, life is not stress free. We all have our own, baggage to carry, and life throws lemons at us at all times. That really caught my attention, and I could not agree more to that. We cannot stop events going south in our lives. We can't.
Right.
So the only thing we can control is our reaction, our coping mechanisms. That's the one thing we can control. And I think I needed to hear that at this point right now is learning how to ground ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the best bet. We can only bet on ourselves.
Right. I mean, ultimately, and
I do have another question.
Sure. Ask away.
Sorry.
No,
I think
you're good. You're good.
I do have another question to ask you about. Okay. You told me about how you went to the mountain at the age of 19 and you ask yourself, who am I? I want to know more about that. How long did it take there?
Yeah.
How long did you stay in the mountains in order for you to kill your ego entirely? Tell
So
me
that's
a
a
bit more
great
about
question. And I was able to, and everyone has a different journey. You can take a different journey. My journey started with my faith, my religion, and I volunteered for a 2-year mission where
Oh,
you give up all your life for 2 years and you go to serve another country, another culture, another people. And you talk about your belief. And that's what you do. So you wake up every day, you're not dating, you're not on the computer, you're not really doing sports much. You stay with another companion that's also doing that. And all you do is teach others how to find joy and happiness. And in that process, you find joy and happiness. So that's what happened to me. Like as I was teaching others, I lived in Chile. I learned to speak Spanish. Did I like Spanish in high school? No, I hated Spanish in high school. I took 3 years of Spanish in high school. I didn't learn a lick. Sorry, my Spanish teachers. I didn't learn much, and I didn't, I just didn't really like it. I was like, oh, I'm not very good at it. And of course, I get sent to a country that speaks Spanish. That was ironic, right? I think the universe does that sometimes when
yeah.
you try to, it's like you try to control it. You try to say, well, I know what I like. And it's like the universe is like, okay, there you go. You're now going to learn Spanish. And I fell in love with the language. Spanish is a beautiful language. It's a wonderful language. I love it absolutely now. But you go, and I served. And as you lose yourself in the work, per se, you lose yourself, you end up finding yourself. So when you start to worry about someone else instead of you wake up every day, you say some prayers, you're thinking about the Gonzalez family. How can I help the Gonzalez family come closer to their creator and find joy and peace in their life? about someone else, I realized that I was finding who I was. I was finding myself. So as I lost myself in the work, I found myself. It is a very interesting technique. It's a very interesting phenomena. And I think it is pretty universal. And what is that? Like, the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa did it, name all these. A lot of people, these are not stories that are uncommon. When people go and dedicate themselves to another cause, another thing, something higher than you actually find yourself. So if it's like the Peace Corps, I had a staff member one time. Let's just share a brief story. She went and worked. She worked for the Peace Corps. Oh, what was it? But it was like in the Forest Service. It was like a volunteer slash. I think they gave them food, they gave them shelter. They took care of them, maybe a little stipend. But for the most part, it was a charity organization. And in the end, she came out a better person. You could tell that after a year of doing this volunteer service, she had found herself. She knew who she was. So again, find yourself by losing yourself. Go dedicate your life to something other than you. Now, does it have to be full-time 24/7? No. Sometimes, hey, sorry, I got to work, but volunteer at a soup kitchen every Saturday. Do something beyond you, and I promise you, you will find you.
Oh God, I am getting so many goosebumps right now listening to this story. It's amazing. I mean, I've only heard from afar about how, people become, develop that monk mentality, go to the mountains, and you hear about all these things, but hearing it from a perspective of a person who's actually been in that situation is a different thing. It's a whole new level. And I loved how killing the ego literally means killing the ego, where you're no longer the center of your attention, your world, and you give all of your energy to the other person. That person then becomes your purpose. That little cause becomes your purpose, and you dedicate yourself entirely to that little cause. I think that's the best way to kill your ego. I think that's the blueprint to killing our ego.
Right.
And now that I think about it, it's true. We are constantly worried about what people are thinking about us. How do we perceive ourselves in the eyes of other people? Who am I, in the eyes of other people? We are always constantly, outward focused. Yeah. Worried about our image, right. Worried about surviving, worried about thriving, etc., etc., etc. So this idea is fascinating.
There's another byproduct to killing the ego. There's another byproduct, and that is actually I never get embarrassed. It's that feeling of embarrassment is also not part of my persona.
Wow.
And of course, my kids, and kids are learning that. Like, so kids get self-conscious. Oh, well, what do they think about me? Yeah. And especially I feel for my daughters, right? I mean, daughters sometimes. No offense to the guys. I have 3 girls and a boy, and the boy is like, oh yeah, okay, Dad. But the daughters, they feel everything, right? Everything is a feeling, and I try to help them to understand that. Look, you are not your feelings, for one, right? We can control our feelings. We are not our feelings. We don't ignore them. We validate them, sure, but we don't validate them to the point where they control us. We are agents unto ourselves. We control us. And then B, we don't owe anything to anybody. We are ourselves. Like, you don't have to worry about if your hair looks bad, your hair looks bad. Okay, be happy with it. If you're happy with it, that's all that matters, right? And at the end of the day, you're not here to, we're not putting on a fashion show. We're not, and that's hard with life sometimes. But ultimately, there's no embarrassment. I can't remember the last time I was actually embarrassed. And part of that is in that ego killing adventure, in that going to the mountain. One time, another brief story here, and I have stories galore, but so I'm, again, 19, 20, I don't know what I'm in Chile. I'm learning the language. You get better every month, right? More and more you stay there, the more you're immersed, your mind is able to click over. In fact, at one point I used to dream in Spanish. It was wild. You knew you were getting immersed into the culture when you're starting to dream in the language that you're in.
True.
But we were on a bus ride. It was like a 20-30 minute bus ride. And I just had this idea, I've got to get over my fear of people, and I need to totally immerse myself in sharing this message with others, no matter what, without fear, without shame. So, and I don't know where this idea came from. So I went to the bus driver and I said, "Hey, bus driver, can I teach your bus about this message? Is that okay?" And he goes, "Sure, no problem." So I stood on this bus for like 20 minutes in the middle, holding it up, talking about this, and I just completely lost myself. I got into the flow. And it was like, hey, if I can teach a bus full of strangers that I've never met and be engaged and love it, I'll do anything. And that was also in my transformation. I really do. And it was like, hey, from now on, I can talk to anyone. I can, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed. And I think that's another great byproduct of this process of losing yourself. You then lose this embarrassment. And no offense to those that do get embarrassed, and some are a little more sensitive to embarrassment. I get it. But I will venture to challenge that embarrassment is almost a byproduct of pride. And then if we're getting embarrassed,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you never, it starts to become a little bit of, in Spanish, it's orgullo, this word that it just tinges on what you're better than us. That's why you're embarrassed. Like, what do you mean? Like, you don't need to be embarrassed because no one's better than anybody else. We are all on this journey together. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Oh,
I don't mean to be,
absolutely.
I don't mean to be insensitive, because again, some people, we all have different sensibilities, and some people get embarrassed faster than others. But I am here to say that for the most part, there's no need to be embarrassed. Like, embarrassment is another one of those feelings. Like, is it really serving us? We can laugh at it and be, yeah, again, an occasional embarrassment's fun. That's fine. But like the instance of actually being like, it starts to actually create a negative feeling, I think, in our persona. And we should try to avoid
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think speaking about embarrassment, I loved how you brought this topic up because there are a lot of people who are going to resonate with this. People get embarrassed to the point of wanting to just sink themselves down the ground and never wanting to be seen by anyone. Embarrassment gets the best of them, and they let it consume them to the point where they go in hiding. So
Right, right.
a good byproduct of losing ego is also losing embarrassment. That's a big one. I absolutely love that. And I think overcoming that embarrassment by putting yourself out there without worrying about the consequence is a great action step that one can take. And I'm glad that you did that. And I'm glad that it has now become a part of your personality and identity. And I totally agree with that. It totally makes sense to me. I have also put myself in situations where I would go unprepared and just let my instincts guide the way, And every single time that has happened, I get in a state of flow without without a problem with it.
Right.
It was so effortless. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think if people understand this one notion that embarrassment is probably holding them back from a truly, putting themselves out there and probably deliver a message that they're meant to deliver in their own unique way, I think there will be a major revolution.
I think it's these things that I'm teaching or that I'm talking about. I still believe societies would be incredibly helped. Like imagine if you had thousands and
Yeah.
millions of people doing this. Conflict would
Oh,
go away. Understanding and love would thrive. That's that gets me back to the word love, right? Ultimately, when you kill your ego, you find love. You now love yourself, and it's not
yeah.
this egotistical love of, oh, I need to pamper myself 24/7. No, self-care is important, but it's self-care because you've actually lost yourself. I think sometimes in society
Oh, yeah.
we've disconnected. We've got, well, you need
I love
self-care.
that.
Well, self-care, yeah, self-care in the fact of, well, maybe I need to kill my ego more. Like, am I holding myself back because of some sort of limiting pride or some limiting belief that I've got to, again, escape myself so that I can be better? And actually, once you kill your ego, once you have realized in the universe that you have a creator that loves you, and that word L, the big L, love, takes over your life. And I pose this in the business world. And I remember I took a business course years ago at the University of Tulsa, great university. phenomenal university there in Oklahoma. Though Oklahoma is not known for its great academic powers, I would say the University of Tulsa is absolutely top notch. And I took a course in the business school, and I took what's called a mini MBA. So I don't have a master's of business administration, but I have a mini MBA certificate. So it's like 4 months or 5 months course. Took it at night, and they basically took their 18-month course and they just crammed it into like 3 months. And we were going around the room at one point, and someone said, "What makes a great leader? Like, what is a great leader?" And I said, and then of course I think they all were like, "Who invited this guy?" I said it's not about hitting KPIs and revenue and this. It's actually love. Why do we follow the people we follow? It's because we love them and they love us. Now, it's not romantic love. It is this innate human power that transcends. I'm going to say this, I know it's a little woo-woo. I think love transcends time, space, everything. It permeates, and we sense it. We sense when our boss has our back. We sense when people love us, and we can send that love back. And when that happens, both either at the home, with a spouse, with a kid, even at work, you can feel love. And that boss actually is a great boss, a great leader, because we love them and they love us back. That's it. It's about love. Life's about love. How do we feel it? How do we expel it? Or how do we exude it? How do we accept it? Right? Because if you reject love, you're also losing out. So give it and receive it. And that's the flow. That's the flow, Samra. It's the power of love. I know it's cheesy. Huey Lewis sang about it in the 80s. It's the power of love. And love is real. Talk about finding the ability to love better, love deeper, love wholer, love yourself, right? Love yourself. And by loving yourself, you kill yourself. You lose yourself in whoever or whomever find that higher power. Once you've lost yourself, you then find yourself and you realize that people are worthy of love. Everyone is worthy of love. And if you look at some of my posts here on LinkedIn in the last 3 to 4 months, 6 months, I've been saying the word greatness as well. There's greatness in all of us. See the greatness, seek the greatness. There is greatness in all of us.
Love that.
Anyway, well,
powerful messages. I think I love your definition of leadership from the perspective of love, which could also be translated as L for leadership, L for love. They have the same first letter. And that's a fresh take on leadership, by the way. When I talk about leadership with people, I always talk about, have genuine concern for people and have no concern for yourself, being a selfless leader. But if we put it all together and merge it into just 4 letters, which is love, I think that's a better definition. And I don't think it's woo-woo or 80s stuff. I think this is the new future, learning how to love the right way. And even my coach tells me, if you're facing trouble in your business or you're facing trouble in your life, just ask yourself, what would love do?
Wonderful.
And that stood out to me, and that makes sense because that's a powerful question to ask. What would love do? And love means zero ego, no ego. Love and ego cannot coexist.
Oh, I love
so losing ourselves to find ourselves. I think that's the punchline for this podcast. I love that, absolutely. And I would like to add a few more pointers to the topic of ego from my perspective. I think I really want to talk about it because I've sensed people have this struggle lately that I've been seeing, is that ego also manifests as self-doubt, as limitation, as a hindrance in our growth. So I was reading about it, and I found out that there are, and I'm sure you agree with it, there are 2 sides of us. One is the ego self, and one is the higher self. Now, the ego self is the one that is commonly known as the comfort zone, because ego, in a way, likes to protect us. It likes to keep us small. And in the pursuit of keeping us small, ego will then stop us from going big in terms of growth in our professional and our personal lives. Hey, what if you get rejected? Hey, what if you fail? What if you don't succeed? You want to do something. There's an inner calling, which is basically coming from our higher self. We then shut it down with our ego self. It gets the best of us, and then we give in. So in a way, ego is like an unimplemented, inspired idea that never takes off. Never takes off, because I really wanted to shed light on this, because these days, entrepreneurs, business people, I think that's the blind spot that they are basically probably not able to notice, which is probably being a big hindrance in their business growing big, because we put ourselves in this trajectory that, okay, there are so many people doing this, why should I do it, right? There's so much competition in the market is saturated. Okay, what if my prices are too high? Maybe I should charge low. And as I was reading about energetics and how mindset can play a bigger role than basically strategies in getting, in making six figures, let's put it in numerous, put numbers to it, six figures. So I think it's the belief that you have a unique energy and a unique aura to bring into the marketplace that no one can replicate. It does not matter if you are the last coach on earth and everyone else is also a coach. Doesn't matter, as long as you have your own unique perspective to bring, and that is something no one can take from you. And when we bank on that and don't charge less, that's where we become, we break those barriers of the ego and start, entering the realm of the higher self.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's awesome. I totally agree. I love this idea that the ego is the what if person. The ego is always asking what if, what if, what if. The higher person just says, I am. Not what if. I am this. I am great. You're not prideful. You're just saying, I have a higher calling. I am this. Now, maybe I haven't achieved $1 million yet, or whatever that goal is, but some people say, you fake it till you make it. Well, no, you are, and then you're going to go live your being, who you are, not the what ifs. And the what ifs, again, it's a limiting belief.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I love it, Samra.
Yes,
I love it.
It is. Thank you so much, Alex. And I think the what if question is not even real. If you think about it, it's just a
interesting. Yeah, I love it.
Illusion that we are falling for. We believe, and when we fall for, like you tell your daughter, your feelings are not you.
It's a smoke screen.
Yes, exactly. And we fall for it every single time.
And sometimes we fall for it. You're right. And I think that's part of that going to the mountain is you stop falling for it, right? You fall for it less and less and less. And that's why it's not an overnight process. You can have overnight moments. You can have some aha moments, but you then need to put it into practice. And as you practice it, as you apply it, it gets easier and easier. And then it becomes a part of you.
Oh, yes. Application is the big, I think, catalyst in us shedding the ego. And that is where people falter. They don't take action because their ego stops them.
Right.
And when the message comes to us, from somewhere, from the ethers, that, hey, you're meant to do this, you're supposed to do this, go out there and do this. It's basically the higher calling telling us to do it. It's the higher self.
Yeah.
We don't trust it because our ego is stopping us from trusting it. What the hell is this? But it's not just coming from somewhere. It's coming from the higher self.
Right. And
we are supposed to honor it.
Honor it. Yeah, that's great. That's right. And that's why, walking on grass every day, taking a walk, meditating, prayer, these ways of just getting, away from that ego, separating yourself helps that quiet it down, right? And then you can really focus on what matters in life. And that's why some of these other
Oh, yeah.
practices, somatic practices, or, well, these are all, in my mind, geared toward just helping us find our higher self. Suppress the ego, send it away. You're meditating, you're finding your higher self, things like that, and everyone has a little different. Again, some people love to meditate. Some people love to go walk on the beach. Some people love to read an uplifting book. Whatever helps you get into that state where you're suppressing, killing the ego, finding yourself. You lose yourself to find yourself.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you brought this up because it's also important to know how to access the higher self, right?
Right.
And earthing, grounding, meditating, yoga, all those exercises that don't require the logical mind is so important. Awesome introduction and awesome stories that you shared with us, Alex. I think they are profound to the point where I'll need to watch our podcast again to get a better understanding, a deeper understanding of what was just shared today. It was a super powerful, impactful podcast, and the energy was contagious, awesome energy, and I cannot wait for people to tune in and watch our podcast. With that being said, we will wrap up our podcast, and if anyone wants to get in touch with us, I link our handles below. Feel free to reach us through our profiles, book a call if you will, and hopefully we'll see you next time with another powerful story. Thank you, Alex, for your time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, and have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye.